I'm Ian. As Angie mentioned, these days I head up the operations team for the Filecoin project, but previously I was our man in Washington, which gave me the chance to learn from some of the amazingly talented people who are educating lawmakers and regulators about Web3. And today I have the privilege of introducing two of the very best people working in this space, my friends, Kristin Smith and Quinn. Kristin is the founder and the executive director of the Blockchain Association, which is a trade association that leads the crypto industry's development of a strategic roadmap for public policy. After starting Blockchain Association from scratch, Kristin now counts among her members most of the leading projects, investors, and exchanges working to build and support the decentralized web. She's held many senior positions in both House and Senate offices, and has spent most of her career working at cross-party lines to advocate for open internet and telecom policies. Georgia is the general counsel of Anchorage, a cutting-edge digital asset custodian that works with most of the leading crypto projects and many large companies that are household names. She was previously the general counsel of CoinList, where she also wrote the book on helping blockchain projects compliantly raise funds. Georgia is a world-class securities lawyer, an accomplished entrepreneur, and a startup co-founder. Georgia, Kristin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, great to be here. Thank you.
I think to start off, just to give some folks some more context, I think many of the people who have been watching this presentation are on the side of the technologists and sort of builders who are putting a lot of this technology into action. Can you help them understand a little bit more about what your two organizations do? Starting with Kristin.
Yeah, so the Blockchain Association is a trade association headquartered in Washington, D.C., and our mission is to change public policy for the crypto ecosystem. Protocol Labs was one of the founding members of the association, and that's where I got to turn Ian into a lobbyist for a few months there while we had him watching, which was really fun, and I think would make a great TV show someday because it was so comical. But but what we do is we work with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. We work with regulators at all the various regulatory agencies, and in order to do the education so that they can understand the promise of this technology, and then also propose very detailed solutions as to how we think different problems that arise need to be addressed. And then we go up and we meet with everyone we need to meet to in order to get those solutions enacted, which is a slow process, sometimes a frustrating process, but certainly a lot of fun to do when we're doing that with people like Ian and Georgia.
And when I first met you, two and a half years ago now, Kristin, I think that you had just started Blockchain Association. It was you and a lot of caffeine and a lot of meetings on the Hill. How big have your team grown to now?
Yeah, we have a pretty good team. We have myself, we have Miller, who runs our policy, Jacob, who does our advocacy on the Hill. We have a new full-time person, Sarah, starting in December, and then we have a handful of consultants and law firms that we do work with. So, and then we have two interns that are awesome, Lindsay and Alex. So it's quite the team. It's a lot of fun.
Unbelievable growth in a really short period of time. Very cool. And then Georgia, tell us a little bit about Anchorage and about CoinList as well, if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. And actually, I just started my tenure here at Anchorage about a month ago. So really trying to hit the ground running. But Anchorage is a digital asset platform, probably most widely known for custody. And I think kind of the prompt of your question was focusing on protocol developers, token developers, and the kind of assistance and support that our institutions can provide. And with respect to Anchorage, we are really trying to structure to allow these protocols to operate and develop and support them, with respect to institutions and then just, the broader public in general, because without the rails and, the entry points, a lot of participants will be denied access to these, new technologies. And so we're really trying to ease the on and off ramps into Web3, basically. And then with respect to CoinList, for those of you who aren't familiar, CoinList is just a platform that helps, it really focuses on token developers from early development stage when it's just an idea, to financing, to launch, and then to, you know, liquidation services and trading support in you know, in a post-launch era. So I've been so fortunate in my career because I've been able to see the development of this industry from so many different angles and really kind of from ground up. And I just find it fascinating, and it's really, it's just a wonderful place to work.
Very cool. Georgia,
and I get to work with you too, of course. Yeah, sorry.
All right. You'll get your check after the meeting. Yeah, okay. So I think a lot of people don't realize like that this whole aspect of the world is happening in the sort of Web3 space, that there are these people who are putting in work behind the scenes to create this environment where Web3 projects are set up for success. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the policy work that you've done that makes you the proudest, starting with Kristin.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, compared to anything I've done in my career, that the work that I'm most excited about and most passionate about has been working on crypto policy at the Blockchain Association. I mean, this has been such an amazing group of people that are trying to solve really cool problems and are succeeding in doing that. So I think that this is the type of work that has been good. I think when I think about policy making, you know, there are a lot of things where we want to be proactive and have something happen. But there's also times where we want to actually slow things down and stop bad things from happening. And it's much more fun to be for something than against something. But I think that some of our greatest victories have been around those issues and those bills and those rules that didn't happen. And I think we had a moment, this was back when Ian was in town, when Libra was announced. You know, prior to that, we've been going around telling everybody that, hey, you know, these crypto networks are gonna, you know, be the solution to everything we hate about the internet. And then that messaging got a little messed up when Facebook came out and announced Libra, and so we had to act pretty quickly. But with Ian's help, and Jacob had just started on our team at the time, we went and hit 60 offices in 2 weeks, and leading up to these congressional hearings to hear about the project. And I think what was great is that we actually, for the first time, really got our message across that crypto is diverse. It's not just Bitcoin. There are a lot of different flavors of it, and that this was something that needed to be thought about in a serious way. And we succeeded in differentiating ourselves from, at the time, what was, you know, Libra that was kind of sucking up all the oxygen in the room. So anyway, we had a lot of fun that week. Ian and I got to sit in front of 14 members of Congress for an hour and try to explain. And we would use protocol labs and Filecoin as like the example for how to do that. So that was one of my favorite moments.
That was so much fun. I'm actually kind of astonished that it went as well as it did. I think to give context, right? Like you're going and meeting with members of Congress, and these are people who have an incredibly broad set of responsibilities, right? Like we're coming in and talking about weird Web3 stuff. The next person wants to talk about like pork belly futures. The person after that wants to talk about like some incredibly important like banking regulation or something like that. So they have a lot on their plate. Usually we're like, okay, here's how cryptocurrency works, here's how Bitcoin works. To be able to successfully take that message and then craft it into this incredibly nuanced message that's like, here are the differences between what a project like Libra is doing and what a decentralized project like Bitcoin's doing and what a project like Filecoin's doing. And then get, you know, I think we must have done 60 or 70 meetings that week. It was crazy. And to be able to get that message across and then hear the education that we performed being repeated in these open sessions in Congress was unbelievable. It was like, there were these really nuanced takes that were happening. People understood the distinctions between the different technologies. And like a ton of that, I'd say 90+% of that was Kristin's work, just like knowing who to talk to and how to get the messages across. So I'm glad that you brought that up because it's something that I'm quite proud of as well. And it was fun to be part of with you.
I totally second that because I just remember like the level of sophistication, like it was just a complete step change. Like there was a point when we would go to the Hill and we would talk to you know, staffers, and the first, you know, 45 minutes of your hour-long meeting was just like explaining what a blockchain is, right? And then after that whole period of time, like you would immediately come and you'd just be talking custody. you'd just be explaining like nuances of like very particular things. And it was great. I mean, I definitely credit Kristin and her team on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of outstanding work that's been performed in Washington, Georgia, can you talk to us a little bit about some of your greatest hits?
I would love to. I also do have to give like full disclosure. Anchorage is a Libra partner. So I think it was unfortunate that we got a lot of the ire of Congress for issues probably not even related to, blockchain and distributed ledger technology, just kind of thrown because of, Facebook and certain other practices that they have. But regardless, I am glad we were able to undertake that educational effort. But
there was other stuff going on there for sure.
Regardless, though, it was a good experience for all of us. And as far as some of the other things that I'm super proud of, for all of us, would be the token safe harbor, which was proposed by Commissioner Peirce. We worked really hard on that, and for what it's worth, like, even if this never comes into law, even if this never comes to fruition, the concept of it just being out there in the, zeitgeist is so important, because it shines a light on the things like Telegram, where, which was really just an exercise in pre-crime in my mind. Actually, no law was ever violated yet. The tokens actually weren't ever even distributed. Anyway, I'm not going to go into like the details, but the point is, we would never have to get to these kind of situations where, what a travesty, what a waste of resources to have built this entire network and worked for years on this project. And then at the moment it's supposed to, be shared with the world, it has to, be stopped basically. And that's just, we can, I think, all agree that that's not a good use of resources. And if we had had something in place like the token safe harbor, ex ante, we could have said, this project will fit within this framework or it won't. And so we can do it or we can't. We'll spend these resources on this or we won't. And that's really what everybody needs. They just need some certainty. And that certainty shouldn't have to be gated by a regulatory agency saying, I give you permission, I don't give you permission, I give you permission. That's not the way, the law should work. But anyway, I'm digressing here. So token safe harbor, and then like what Kristin is saying with the legislation, certainly there was stuff that, needed to be killed. It was bad. But also there is some great legislation that's been proposed out there. And again, we know what the state of Congress is right now, like nothing is getting passed, but getting these bills out there, getting people reading them, getting people thinking about them is so important. Like this is work that we can't stop doing. And so, those are the things that I'm definitely proud of, and I'm excited to keep doing.
And just in case anyone in the audience didn't have a chance to keep up with it, can you give like the SparkNotes version of the safe harbor proposal that you advised Commissioner Peirce on?
So the safe harbor basically takes away all of the question at the inception of a token project around, is it fully decentralized? Is it, oh, you know what, I should back up a little more. Sorry, guys. So, we have this big issue with token and token protocols as to whether or not there is security. Because basically, if a token is deemed to be a security, it's a death knell for any sort of, distributed sort of technology, any kind of protocol that needs to work amongst regular retail people. And so there's always this tipping point. Like the SEC has said, Bitcoin is not a security. Ethereum is not a security, right? So we know that there is a state where these protocols can get to where they are definitely not a security, but we just don't know where along the road that happens. Is it a year after launch? Is it after, they have 100,000 users? Like, we don't know the metric. And so the token safe harbor basically says, we're not going to decide that now. You get 3 years to build out your network, to develop your system, to engage your community, to do what you intend to do. And after that 3 years, we will then apply the Howey test, which is the determinative investment contract, for deeming something to be a security or not. We will then apply that test and look at your protocol and see, if you should be regulated as a security or not. And so it takes all that like stress off of the initial building and development and gives people the freedom to build and code and make things that are really important. Because, one of the things I think we should talk about too is like, what we're really trying to prevent at the end of the day is uncertainty. Because for me, uncertainty is worse than bad law. I will actually take bad law over not knowing what the law is any day of the week. And I say that because I think we're all pretty smart people and we can figure it out. Give me a bad law and we'll work with it and at least we know what it is and we'll figure out how to deal with it. But if I don't know what the law is, I can't even take one step forward.
Well said. And I think, there's this very hard chicken and the egg problem that you've described, and the safe harbor that you helped with solves it very elegantly. And I think I think it's gotten quite a lot of pickup. I know that Commissioner Peirce is working on sort of V2 of it with some refinements and incorporating some feedback. So excited to see where that one lands probably in the coming weeks or months. Okay, great. So having talked about your greatest hits, or at least like 1% of them for both of you, as I know, what's going on right now? What's the current slate of events that you're focused on?
Well, there's an election coming up, and I think
okay, I heard about that.
Yeah, in DC they sort of have this phrase "personnel is policy," and I think when we look at these issues, they're very complicated and they're very in depth. And so you have to have somebody who's willing to put in the time and who sees the potential and wants to do the right thing. And we've seen examples of this. Jay Clayton at the SEC has not been particularly interested. And as a result, we haven't seen a lot of policies come out of there. Brian Brooks at the OCC came from Coinbase and knows this stuff really well and is motivated to do things, and he acts very quickly. And so having people in key leadership positions within either a Trump administration or a Biden administration is going to be really important. And there is just a big question mark as to who's going to win, and then what people are they going to put in place. And so I know that's something we spend a lot of time thinking about, how our strategy is going to be different. But one issue that's kind of starting to lurk around out there is related to self-hosted wallets, and there is some international regulators that are looking at limiting transfers to unhosted wallets. We're seeing or self-hosted wallets, as we like to say, and we're starting to hear a little bit of that here in Washington as well. So we're spending a lot of time putting together an analysis on that issue. So that's one I think that regardless of the administration, we're gonna see happen. But the rest of it, I think, will not see happen, but see discussed and debated. But the rest of it is really going to be contingent upon who we have in all of the key regulatory agencies and also on the committees in Congress.
So for the folks at home, there's an aspect of US financial regulatory law called the travel rule, which basically imposes certain reporting requirements on transfers of money under certain circumstances and above certain amounts. Kristin, it's sort of confusing and totally murky how this applies to cryptocurrency, especially in the context of self-hosted wallets. Kristin, is that sort of the nexus of the current confusion on the Hill, or is there other stuff going on as well?
It's not much at the Hill, it's at the Treasury Department right now that is thinking about these issues. I think they're, for the sort of uninitiated kind of, average policymaker, when they hear cryptocurrency, they think money laundering, they think terrorist finance, they only see the bad side, the criminal uses, and they don't yet see the good side, which is why it's so cool to have Filecoin launched and out there, because then we have like another tangible example we can point to help correct that misperception. But for those people who think it's just criminals using this stuff, they see these self-hosted wallets, which they call unhosted wallets, as sort of being like a Swiss bank account where you can't track what's in there. their arguments are not, crazy, because today, we have cash, and yes, I can go on the street and hand somebody on the corner a $5 bill if I wanted to, and no regulator or financial institution would track that. But where regulators are concerned is that because you can move really large amounts like instantly all over the world, that is what they're afraid of, and they want to have some sort of limit on that ability of users to do that. So I think it's one of those issues that isn't going to go away, and that we're going to have to engage in with policymakers.
Well, for anyone who needs to help folks understand some good uses for cryptocurrency, especially for you and Kristin, or Georgia and Kristin, in case you haven't had a chance to see it, Jonathan Doughton gave a talk yesterday, and it was about his work with the Starling project and the USD Shoah Foundation. Absolutely incredible. You have to watch it. But he talks all about how he's worked with Filecoin and then a number of other projects to create this totally verifiable chain of custody for important news, like data from around the world. So specifically, they're recording testimony from people who have been survivors of genocide. They're recording like information about election integrity and things like that. And they're creating this totally verifiable chain of evidence. And it's all only possible because of, among other things, the existence of verifiable storage that's backed up by a blockchain. So it'll be nice when people say this is just for terrorist financing, this is just for money laundering, to be able to say, no, not at all. Here's some like amazing examples with real people explaining to you exactly the impact this makes in a really important field.
Or actually, so you're like, you know what? You get to say, you know what? You're right. It is for the prosecution of money laundering and the prosecution of terrorism.
Oh yeah, as well as I do that there's like a number of FBI reports where they extol the virtues of Bitcoin because it's an immutable ledger that sits in public, which makes it very easy to analyze. I've made this argument in many offices on the Hill.
Well, as a lawyer, I'm loving this project and the way, like, if you can have this chain of custody for evidence, like, it's so wonderful, and it can be global, and I mean, that's just brilliant use.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So Georgia, what's your issue du jour?
Oh, okay. Well, I have two. It was the chicken egg, but I feel like we're trying to get there with token safe harbor. So now I've moved on to custody, which, as some people may know, there's still a logjam at the SEC, still yet to approve a single custodial broker dealer approved to hold crypto, or approved to hold digital securities. And my point is just, how can we have like a regulated and safe industry if we can't even get the infrastructure built and regulated? Part of the complaint is that people are using unregistered, exchanges and get, the integrity of the markets is not there, not existing because they're having to go offshore. But we're not allowing anybody in the US to operate in a regulated fashion. So, I mean, you're complaining on one hand, but you're not doing anything to solve the problem on the other. So that's my one. And then my other is just tax. Like, we really need some thoughtful tax guidance. I feel like the IRS is just like pretending this isn't happening, but it's happening, and people need to know how we're going to treat these assets, and just some comprehensive but thoughtful guidance would be really good here. And again, I'm not asking for new laws. I don't think we need new laws. I just think we need to know like which ones to apply.
Totally. Like, the tax issue is so acute. Like, it's something that has to be solved in a satisfactory way for something like Filecoin to really like experience broader adoption, right? Like, imagine you have a company that's doing storage at massive scale, right? Like hundreds of petabytes, exabytes of storage. That's going to be billions and billions of individual file movements every year. And under current laws, every time that you turn the Filecoin that you hold into like a file, you're going to have like some really unclear tax accounting to deal with, right? So yeah, thankfully, this has been like more of it's been like a sort of theoretical problem so far, but it's going to become very acute for people as this stuff picks up. So we're lucky to have you and Kristin and a bunch of other smart folks that I know working on it. That's good stuff. Okay, we're coming up close to time, so lightning round. If you can make one policy, you could snap your fingers, make a policy change to help Web3. It goes into effect tomorrow. What would it be?
I would say clarity on securities laws.
I would say clarity on tax laws.
All right, easy enough. It's stuff we already talked about. So that was like the lightningest of lightning rounds.
Oh, I thought there were going to be like 7 more questions. Boom, boom, boom.
Oh no, it was like
Oh.
a single lightning strike. It never strikes twice.
Got
it. That probably is how a lightning round works more regularly, isn't it? Okay, so last question. Obviously, you're steeped in this all day, and it's your career. For folks who are here in the audience and they are focused more on the technical side, more on the ecosystem side, and it's not as clear where to get reliable information about this stuff. Hint, the answer is not crypto Twitter. What's the best way for them to keep up on these things to figure out what's actually going on?
Well, if you're working for an organization in this space, I think you should get your organization to join the Blockchain Association and be a part of our efforts. And we can plug you in to the network that we've built here. And I also think for individuals, I co-founded an organization called HODL PAC, which is a political action committee that has sort of a dual mission. One is to encourage people in our ecosystem to take political action and weigh in with their members of Congress. And then it's also a tool for organizing political campaign contributions to the champions in the industry. So you can go to hodlpac.org for that, or theblockchainassociation.org for information on BA.
Yeah, I was totally going to say join Blockchain Association. And, you know, Ian, you said like to avoid crypto Twitter, and that is for sure. Also, I would say like avoid like big fancy law firms. I think that a lot of people just feel like this is a legal issue, and so they need to like go to, you know, a big law firm before they even get started and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that is just such a waste of resources and energy. Like, this is a very uncertain area. What you don't need to do is pay people lots of money to tell you things they don't know. So, you know, get good resources, get good referral sources from people that you trust, and go about it that way. Don't just like go blowing wads of cash, you know, before you even have got like a proof of concept for what you're trying to do.
I would third the advice to definitely join the Blockchain Association if you're in a position to do so. And if not, I'll make one exception to my Twitter rule, which is follow Kristin, because she will keep you in the loop. All right, so we got one really good question in chat, and I want to share it here because it's actually a fascinating one. It's, I think, targeted for Kristin, and I'll summarize it a bit. You know, in the past, many layers of the internet have been built with funds from DoD, and the OSI model has provided a lot of support for like a lot of foundational software that powers the current internet to be built. How much importance is being given at the federal level to helping to develop like the sort of future protocols that will upgrade the internet, that will upgrade Web3?
Yeah, no, I think there have been a couple bills in Congress that have been introduced that would sort of create different grant programs to help with that. I still think, though, that Web3 is not a concept that's mainstream in Washington. But that being said, I think there is a tremendous amount of interest, especially on members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. In particular, Darren Soto has spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get more kind of federal dollars to help do some of this work. I do think that there was a policy statement that came out of the White House a couple weeks ago that sort of, you know, gave a nod to distributed ledger technology, and that is, you know, I think a sign that some of this is starting to kind of percolate as a keeping these issues as like a matter of national importance and competitiveness. And I think that, you know, as we go into next year, I think that members of Congress don't like the current internet, and there are a lot of flaws with that, with sort of like large companies that dominate the space and, you know, use of consumer data. And I think if we can position Web3 and particularly the the crypto networks that are behind Web3, I think that you know, that can be a bigger issue looking ahead.
And I'd just like to tack on there, while we haven't seen like federal funding per se, what I have seen a lot of is like institutional and especially like university support and funding. So a couple of the projects that I worked on when I was at CoinList were seeded by universities. So we are seeing, you know, again, while it's not government per se, it is coming from, you know, some of the more institution-like entities.
Yeah, definitely. And in particular, another great talk this week that some folks might have had a chance to speak or catch was Juan, our CEO, meeting with Dan Benet of Stanford's blockchain group. Another fascinating talk, and gives some light on how universities are continuing to help push this stuff forward to this day. So unfortunately, we are out of time. Kristin, Georgia, thank you so much for taking the stage here and giving folks a chance to see all the unbelievably important work that you're doing.